Sullivan here.
Hello here.
Lork here. Kavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Ladani here.
Shepherd here.
Chandler here.
And approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh.
there were no minutes to review at this point. We will be reviewing the minutes at the next meeting.
Oh, thanks for that heads up. I guess reading counts. Significant common council actions, Carrie?
Council approved the following: an ordinance amending section 17.0316 of the municipal code regarding permitted and conditional uses within the B6 Interchange Regional Retail Zoning District. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Before we kick off the public hearing, our fire chief would like to have a few minutes with Plan Commission and introduce you to his newest battalion chief.
Good evening, Mike
Assistant
Kresick,
Chief.
Mike Kresick, Fire Department. This probably will be my last formal meeting as Fire Department liaison for the Plan Commission. So real quickly, I'd like to say thank you to the commission for the opportunity. 2012, roughly, was when I first got this gig, and it's been very rewarding for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the discussion with the very important decisions that this commission makes. So thank you. Now, most importantly, though, I'm here to formally introduce my replacement and the liaison for the Fire Department to the Plan Commission. It's Assistant Chief Michael Havey. Mike Havey has been with the Fire Department for approximately 24 years, coming up on 24 years, and in an Assistant Chief role, primarily as Assistant Chief of Operations and Training for 4 years, and now is transitioning into my position as Assistant Chief of Administration. Really looking forward to Mike holding this responsibility, taking our prevention program and serving as liaison. He's going to do some great things with the program. He's going to provide you with some outstanding input into projects and to answer your questions, and I think it's really an exciting opportunity. So thank you, and once again, if you have an opportunity, take a moment to meet Mike, great guy, and I think you're going to be pleased to work with him. Thank you.
Good. Mike, you want to say a word, or are you okay back there? Before we move on, I just want to thank the fire chief for all the time and effort he's put in over the years here. It's been a great resource to the Planning Commission. Has really, in his role, he's helped us really understand some of the issues of the things we've been doing here. Particularly with the development we've seen in the time that he spent with us. So you did make a huge difference, and the city's better off for it. So Mike, again, I welcome you, and again, big shoes to fill, but you can do that. So, okay, public hearing, we have a sign appeal. Lori, you want to read that in, please?
I get you every time, don't
Yeah,
I?
I know.
I'll read this into record. Published December 30th, 2019, City of Oak Creek. Notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held January 28th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Oak Creek City Hall, Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. Appellate and text key is as listed. The request is for a variance from section 17.0706, which states that wall signs shall be no more than 200 square feet for buildings more than 300 feet from the street or interstate right-of-way. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install on the west elevation one 10-foot by 33-foot wall sign on the northwest corner, one 88.75-foot by 21.5-foot wall sign located approximately midway between the northwest corner and main entrance area, one 36-foot by 8-foot 3-inch wall sign, and one 104-foot by 21.25-foot wall sign on the center entrance area, and one 36-inch by 120 address sign, and one 24-inch by 80-inch address sign on the property located at 9700 South 13th Street. Zoning of the property is M1 PUD, Manufacturing District, Plan Unit Development. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 30th day of December 2019, Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. This is a public hearing. All those wishing to express opinions on the matter shall approach the podium, state their name and address address their comments to the Plan Commission. I'd also like to just go ahead and talk a little bit more about this sign appeal. As always, in deliverance of a variance, the Plan Commission may consider the following: location of the proposed sign, height, overall size, appearance, number, location of other signs in the vicinity of the proposed sign, any other factors the Plan Commission also deems appropriate, excluding content. And again, staff does not make recommendations regarding sign appeals. However, decisions to approve a sign variance must be made utilizing the criteria listed. And we provided the motion for consideration below. Mayor?
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. We will make 3 calls. This will be the first. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium, give your name and address. This is the first call. Second call, anybody wishing to speak? And third and final call, anybody wishing to speak on the sign appeal, please approach the podium. We'll now close the public hearing and move on to item
7A?
7A. Thank you. We'll open it up to the commissioners for questions. Chauncey, you want to start us off?
Sure. I have a question for the applicant.
Come on up. Name and address, please. No, it can be the business.
Okay.
And who you represent.
Candace Falk, I represent Ryan Companies. We're the general contractor for this building. The address here is 9700 South 13th Street.
Can you provide a little more information on where the signs, where they will reside on the building?
So it is kind of hard to see because it's a small print. But so if you're coming on 13th and Ryan Road, that corner right there of the building, that's where one of the signs will be. That's the largest sign.
And which sign is that?
So that's the Amazon sign, which is the tenant. The other sign is a smile icon, which goes above the main entry. So that just indicates where people are supposed to enter. Then there's 2 smaller vinyl letter signs. One is for recruiting and the other is for main office, which just indicates to people this is where you go if you're being hired or interviewed, and this is where you go to enter to work.
And so I have another question.
Yeah.
So to avoid having a variance, signs should be over only entrances?
Oh, I apologize. It cannot exceed 330 square feet. They already hit that with 1 sign. So they're requesting several other ones, though due to the size of it, that is part of the criteria or one of the reasons they listed why they would like this.
So for these 4 signs, they are not compliant to the 300 square feet, is this correct?
Correct, it goes over the 300 square feet.
1 sign is compliant.
Oh, one of the signs. And which sign is compliant?
There's 2 of them that are 330 square feet, so only one of them would have been compliant.
And which sign is that? Is it the Amazon, the Smile, the recruiting, or the main office? Do you know which one is compliant?
Sure, I can answer that for you. So the Amazon sign on the northern portion would also qualify as it, or the main entry Smile sign.
The reason I'm asking, because I believe I read there's supposed to be 6 signs. And so I see 4. Are there
There's-
2 more?
There's only 4 on this west elevation.
There are only 4 on the west elevation. Are there
Correct.
signs on the other elevations?
The east elevation, but that's another meeting.
Would it be easier if, Lori, would you be able to go through the sign, the slides here, and just start at the top picture and point out where the signs are? That may help
Help.
everybody on here with the bigger picture here.
Sure, so this,
Thank you.
right now shown on the screen is the northern, I'm sorry, this is all on the west elevation, just to make sure we're clear, and it's facing 13th Street. So this is actually on the north side of the building, facing west. So it's the Amazon with a smile tagline underneath it.
That would face Ryan Road.
That's the
No,
13th.
So that
that would
faces
face
13th.
13th.
These will all face 13th Street, but this
13th
one
on
is
the north
closer
end of the
to
building.
Ryan.
Got
North
it.
end of the building. Got it.
Okay.
So the next slide shows the Amazon Smile, which will be above the main entrance. And if you'll also notice towards the bottom left, there is a sign that will be put in place called Main Entry, so allow workers to know where they need to enter. The next slide shows the recruiting sign that they're requesting. This is actually going to be to basically the midpoint, close to the midpoint, between that first sign that we showed with the Amazon Smile tag and the main entrance. And then there'll also be 2 signs providing the address number on the building.
And where's the address number going? Is it with the recruiting sign?
It has not been determined yet.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Greg?
I'll just voice that I don't really have much concern about it. Looking at the scale of the building and the size of the signs, they seem appropriate. The Amazon is actually much smaller than I pictured before I saw the picture. And I think the signs above the doors are necessary to direct people because of the sheer size of the building itself. People are going to need to know where to go, so they're recruiting the main entrance or main office signs are necessary as well. So I don't have an issue with it.
Christina, anything?
No.
Nothing? Don? I'm sorry. Matt? Dawn?
Yeah, just one question. So all these signs are just on the front face of the building that faces 13th.
That is correct.
There will be no other signs?
We do have another sign appeal that will be coming on the February 11th meeting. That will be for the southeast. I'm sorry, it's on the east side of the building, so facing the railroad tracks on the south corner. But
Is
that
there
will
a
not
reason
be-
we're not doing them all together?
They came in at different times, and unfortunately, due to our denial process, they have 30 days to go and submit for a sign appeal. And because the last sign came in too late, there was no way to really put it on the same one.
Okay, and then these are building signs. Will there be directional signs and monument and all those kind of signs?
There is a monument sign that was already approved. That'll
Okay.
be in the center entrance. There is 3 entrances on 13th Street, and so that's all set.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Question was answered.
Okay, Fred?
Thanks, Dawn.
Just from my perspective, I agree with Alderman Lorik. Given the scale of this building, it's kind of a unique circumstance and size that we have in the city. I mean, when you look at the renderings of it, they're going to be fine. They will be lit.
They are
correct?
illuminated.
And they'll be dawn to dusk. I would take it. They're
Yes.
going to be automated. Won't interfere with any neighbors, so I don't have any problems with it. I agree with the wayfinding. Those alone, given the scale of the building, I think it's appropriate. So, nothing else? Motion?
I'll throw one
Yeah,
quick
go
question.
ahead.
Are they going to be illuminated at all? A light on of those signs or?
They are illuminated signs. The smile and then the Amazon with the smile below it are the illuminated signs. The other ones are just vinyl lettering.
Thank you.
So we can do, before we do a motion on it, little fun part about this sign, that smile is an arrow, and it indicates they have everything from A to Z. That's why it goes from A to Z. So, anyways, all right, just a little, take the edge off you guys tonight. Jeez, tough crowd. Anyhow, motion on 7A.
Clark moves that the Plan Commission approve a sign variance allowing the installation of 6 wall signs on the west elevation at 9700 South 13th Street. One 10-foot by 33-foot wall sign on the northwest corner, one 88.75-inch by 21.5-inch wall sign located approximately midway between the northwest corner and main entrance area, one 36-foot by 8-foot 3-inch wall sign, and one 104.5-inch by 21.25-inch wall sign on the center entrance area, and one 36-inch by 120 and 7/8 inch address sign and one 24-inch by 80 and 5/8 inch address sign on the property located at 9700 South 13th Street.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Lania. Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Guzekowski, aye.
There we go. I think they all voted aye. Boy, they're gonna hate doing these minutes tomorrow, I'll tell you. Gets us to 6A in old business. Comprehensive plan, consideration of the review of our comprehensive plan of the 2020 vision. Carrie?
This is a continuation of the discussion on the proposed comprehensive plan for the city of Oak Creek. This updates the entirety of the existing plan. So there were a couple of updates that I wanted to draw the Plan Commission's attention to since the last meeting. We had a correction to the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility property that is on Fifth and American. Just wanted to make sure that we were showing those properties correctly as semi-public. There was an addition to the commercial properties on 27th and Ryan on the south corner. That was to add a flex overlay to allow for flexibility in that commercial designation. We are showing a park at the water tower on the Orchard Hills development that we talked about, and that is going to be on the Parks and Open Space map. There is a correction to 275 East Drexel, which is currently under construction with the self-storage facility, just showing that properly. We had a request to delete the proposed bike share station location at County Line Road on the active transportation plan. And in front of you now, we also have the implementation matrix comments that were part of the discussion at the administrative level. Before we get to that, though, there was also a discussion point within the staff report where we wanted specific Plan Commission recommendation or input on, and that was for the 13th Street corridor, particularly between Rawson and Drexel, wanting to show whether that should remain as industrial, should it show commercial, and I don't recall that the Plan Commission had any specific input on previous discussions, but we wanted to make sure that we address that item as well. So turning to the implementation matrix, and on the screen right now, we have the future land use map for reference here. One of the areas that we were asking for changes was regarding the use of the word proactive in targeting areas for new residential development. That was rezoning areas of the city. Also defining what universal design means. I think it's actually within the text of the document itself, but we want to make sure that that's clear in the implementation matrix. And especially identify any implications of this action. Adding a recommendation for evaluating subdivision infrastructure standards, and specifically whether a modified rural cross-section would be something that we would want to include in order to meet neighborhood development goals, and that's under the encourage new residential development that supports healthy lifestyles and positively impacts key well-being indicators. Then if you turn to page 85, we already discussed the elimination of that bike share station at County Line Road. Following page, remove the specific reference to KRM. What we really want to make sure we do here is state that we are going to be supporting any kind of regional transportation. There's also a comment here about adding a recommended action to evaluate sidewalk gaps and to create a plan to fill in said gaps. And then the last two comments are on the last page here, achieving green goals, clarification for that. You can read some more about that comment, and then providing opportunities to, I think there's actually, the comment is to change the language to just make it more clear that the city and the Oak Creek Franklin School District are going to partner on projects. So if there are any questions on those changes, welcome them. We would love to see if there are any more comments or any more input items that the Plan Commission would like to discuss tonight. I'd like to invite Jackie Wells from Houseo Levine Associates up to provide any more information that the Plan Commission may need. Open it up to the Plan Commission at this point.
Okay. Don, you want to go start us off?
Sure. On District 1, this isn't the changes, but we still have in there identifies the USPS site adjacent to Chapel Hills neighborhood for future business park redevelopment. Is that staying in?
That's a very good point.
We can go see what they're talking about over there and answer.
So that would be changed based on the ongoing discussions regarding that development. At the time that this was created, we weren't entirely certain what was going to be moving forward on that property. And in discussion of that specific land use category, it may be that we need to change it to probably public and semi-public. Okay, we'll make sure that that gets addressed and the right category is shown.
Okay. Thank you.
Looking over. As long as we're in District 1, let's go to the bottom of page 2 of 7. Properties on the east side of 13th Street between Rawson and Drexel have been identified for industrial redevelopment because directly east of them is North Branch. Should we include a slash commercial if that decides to get built up, like from the Flag Center going south?
You can identify certain portions of the corridor that you would like to show changed, or if you want to have certain portions where we can identify a flex overlay for a little bit more flexibility in that area, but we would need to have more direction from the Plan Commission on exactly what you would want to see there. The flex overlay does allow for some flexibility with a project that would come through that would make sense for the area, but we want to make sure that we are not using that flex overlay district inappropriately. So we have some language that's going to be going into the plan that says how we apply it. We won't be using, for instance, a flex overlay district to change manufacturing to residential suddenly. It will be something that is closely related to that underlying future land use category.
Because, just looking at what exists from Rawson working south, gas station, a couple of homes, you have a multi-tenant office building, Flag Center, and then you kind of go all the way until you hit that residential cul-de-sac and that land's for sale. I could very easily see that being commercial use versus an add-on because there'd be no way to connect through North Branch, given what ain't Ashland Chemicals anymore. But it would be hard. I'm cutting out. Okay, I was about to tell you to get on the mic.
So,
Sorry about that, but I guess my point is, do we have some flexibility there? Because we don't know what the future is going to bring on 13th Street. And
there could be a recommendation, if I'm understanding you correctly, Mr. Mayor, of showing commercial on that side of 13th Street between Rawson and the Go Right Way property that's on 13th Street.
correct, is that's
south?
north of the cul-de-sac, correct?
Yes, so
Where-
that's
okay.
that's south of the existing businesses that are at that
That's the
corner.
parcel I'm speaking of,
Okay,
correct?
and then we can show manufacturing down to Drexel, or is there some other change that you would like to see there?
I guess what I'm wondering is what kind of access do you have off North Branch to get there versus coming off 13th and bringing more truck traffic down 13th where we'd like to have it in North Branch?
There are a couple of properties that go between 13th and 10th.
There are.
There
Okay.
are. We could talk about comprehensive planning for those specific sites to allow some kind of connectivity in the future. That's always a possibility.
Kind of getting the cart before the horse, or whichever way you want to say it. I do think, even you're showing the homes on Drexel between 13th and 10th zoned into manufacturing too. There's a series of homes there.
There are, but there also is a continuation of the South Branch or the existing manufacturing that goes to Drexel Avenue there. I can't remember the name of the existing business that's there, but
Bayview.
right on Bayview.
Bayview.
Thank you. Right on the corner of 10th and Drexel. They do actually have quite a large frontage on Drexel.
They
and it
do,
would be the
and-
remaining homes.
Again, it's no offense to the homeowners, but it was an odd zoning to begin with years ago when they did it to allow the homes there. I thought it would have made more sense to enlarge North Branch at that time, but what's done is done. But if they'd ever decide to vacate, I think it makes sense what you're showing. So maybe you're correct. From Go Right Way South, it's M1.
Well, again, this is future land use, not zoning, so it would be,
yeah,
it would be that land use category for manufacturing.
yeah, I think so. Everybody follow that kind of? I know it was a weird description, but
And kind of zoom in on the area a little bit more to give you an idea.
again, I'm just wondering about 13th, particularly up around the theater, if there isn't some flexibility. And then,
So roughly from here to, maybe even here would be potentially commercial.
Mhm.
And then from here down would be, with the exception of the cemetery, manufacturing for future land use. Now, we are showing Go Right Way actually right here. I think there is a business, the multi-tenant business development that you were talking about, Mayor, goes here.
Yep.
So we could even go just south of that, showing commercial.
that's actually what I was thinking. And
Okay.
then actually even north of that multi-tenant, directly across from, is that Sportland? Or no, that's the theater and then Sportland.
So you can see the existing bus parking
Yeah.
right here.
That would, to me, that would make sense to extend the North Branch here.
So to this property line,
I
just
would,
south of the multi-tenant business or office park.
I'd actually go down to past that. I'd go farther south.
Not entirely certain where, there are portions of this part area
That are wetlands.
that Go Right Way owns
Oh,
and may have future plans to develop, but I don't know exactly where their property
I
lines
guess
are.
I guess that would make sense then if they own the property.
That's the only reason I mentioned the bus company is just for a delineation factor, because we have an existing manufacturing use in the bus company.
Okay.
As opposed to, well,
I would leave that to staff, but like I say, just keep the options open, particularly across from Sportland and the theater. That parcel is for sale. It could be commercial use.
now because the Plan Commission actually has to adopt the comprehensive plan, any changes that you are not entirely certain of, we would have to make and then bring back to the Plan Commission if you don't wish to approve tonight. If you're comfortable making a motion with the proposed changes, we can incorporate all of those into the motion.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
I do
Chauncey?
have a question,
Yep, go ahead.
and I may have missed it in the different meetings that we had. Is there any information included about sustainable energy or the use of sustainable energy for the different areas?
Not necessarily specific to any area, but sustainability is something that is incorporated throughout the document for the entire city.
Okay, so when we are saying sustain, that includes all sources, energy, et cetera? Is that what sustain means in these documents? Because I didn't see sustainable energy per se.
You might not see sustainability specifically mentioned in terms of energy, but you could see something like alternative energy.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. Page 5 of 7, District 5. So, bullet point number 3, at the east side of Howell and Ryan Avenue or Highway 100, you're proposing to change it from residential to commercial? Are you reading this correctly?
Oh, that would be the
Yes.
gas station, east of the gas station. correct?
Yes. There are certain parcels in that area that are already turning over to commercial.
I see the gas station, but also I see the back of the gas station going south. There is a big residential area here. And also there is a elementary school, Shepherd Hills.
I don't think it actually extends that far south on the map.
So we're just talking about the gas station parcel?
Not just the gas station parcel, but we're talking about the parcels east right along Ryan Road. So the existing subdivision that is south of Ryan Road is still slated to be residential. The existing elementary school and park that are there, still slated to be those uses in the future.
Yeah, I have a concern with that because if you look at north and south of Ryan, there's plenty of residential area here. So introducing a commercial area within this location could be unfit. So I have a concern with that.
Where would you like to propose the commercial area to end?
Actually, just at a couple of corners from the gas station, couple parcels down. I'm just looking at my own map here. Like where the Gold Coin car wash, the coin flip gas station, and maybe the next parcel. Just a little bit north of the car wash, because I see the subdivision by Fairfield Drive. So we don't want those residents to be impacted so much with those commercial parcels.
Gas, car wash south of Ryan.
It's right here.
Yeah, so those three,
Oh,
the red
It's
area.
right at the
I'm looking at the wrong corner. Got it.
Yeah. So you have plenty of residents along that red line that you are showing on the screen, along Ryan Road.
Yeah, they're residents.
Yes.
Correct. Along the south side.
Too many residents for us to convert totally to commercial there.
Well, but it gives you, the way I understand it, gives you the opportunity to make that change if the time came. It's not that they're saying they're gonna get rid of them now, but they're saying that it gives you the option to do that if, is that right?
That's correct. And because it's shown, this is, I think, shown to property lines just for ease, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have commercial development going right up to those residential lots. And that would come through zoning, that would come through site plan review, conditional use permit review, and anything that would happen down the line. Those existing homes that are along Ryan Road would not be required to change over to commercial. They could remain as long as they're residential. But this allows an opportunity for future commercial redevelopment, and we would still retain control through zoning on what exactly happens in that area.
I still have concern because then you're opening the door. One resident could be okay to turn into commercial, one resident may not be. So they end up being stuck in that situation.
I could jump in. I think the concern with the buffering the residential areas from the commercial areas is a very positive concern. So having the buffering between the residential and the commercial, and I think that's something that we will definitely be addressing in the zoning code update. Is how do we strengthen those buffers between residential and commercial areas, so that if just the one parcel next to the car wash is developed as commercial and the rest remain residential, they would still be required, even though it's identified as commercial in the land use plan, to put up buffers between those adjacent properties so that they wouldn't be affected.
I understand, but see, there is existing resident next to that gas station and it's already there. So for this resident, they already had put up with this from a long time ago. I'm just talking about going east of Ryan Road, those next of those parcels being converted or zoned from residential to commercial.
But this isn't zoning, though. This is just future land use. This is the enabling document. And some of these, again, some of these parcels are already turning over to other uses. So the existing, it was a former school, if I
It
remember
was a
correctly.
school at one time, and I think it's a coffee shop now.
Right. So this would
it's
allow.
turning commercial.
We can talk about having something in this area for zoning that would allow for like neighborhood commercial. So it's very respectful of the fact that it is still in an area that's adjacent to a residential neighborhood. So you would have something like coffee shops and small scale developments that would be handled through zoning.
Exactly. See, I would be okay with that because also we don't want to impact the value of those homes. Because if you bring some non-commercial or something like that out of context, it will impact residents.
Right, but
home
the only
values.
way that we would be able to even talk about that kind of zoning would be to enable this area to become commercial if so chosen. So if it does turn over from residential to commercial, we would then have the opportunity through zoning to say, all right, in this area, it's going to be neighborhood commercial.
Is there a public hearing for those residents to get their input about that rezoning?
Rezoning would
It's not a
happen in
re-
the future.
Yeah, it's not a
It's-
rezone.
This
So
is,
it's
we're
not
not
required?
We're not proposing to rezone any properties at this time.
But if a developer came forward and proposed or to you all to have a rezoning, then there would be a public hearing process, just like any other rezoning. And the economic development framework map that's on page 43 of the land use, or of the comprehensive plan does identify those areas as neighborhood commercial. So the specifications and differences between the corridor commercial, which is what you see along 27th, and the neighborhood commercial really make sure that it's appropriate near the residences.
Another similar situation in the city is 27th to 20th on Rawson Avenue on the south side currently. There's homes there, and it's kind of in a transitional state. A lot of people have their homes up for sale, and they're testing the markets. Again, it's currently residential, but it'll be used for commercial use if they chose to sell and rezone it. Similar.
And this is a 20-year plan, so this isn't going to happen the second you adopt it. It's a long life and forward for the plan.
Well, Oak Creek is booming, so I think it's going to come faster than you think. So, okay, thank you.
Very quickly, can you just kind of scroll the map to the area of I-94 in Drexel? Yeah, the entrance ramps. And I'm specifically looking at the homes on the south side across from the IKEA site. They're in red. What are we doing with those? Is that a commercial site?
Mixed use.
Mixed use. Okay, and then the blue, I'm sorry,
Hang on.
which is on the corner of, oh, wait, where
Are
are
we
we
talking
at?
about the same?
No,
Here?
is
Here,
that
right?
Drexel?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
These are the
mixed use.
properties you're talking
That's
about?
mixed use.
Yeah, that's mixed use.
Okay, what happens to the corner at 20th? At 20th and Drexel, south side? I mean, they show a lot of wetlands in there, but there's an existing home there.
I believe don't quote me on this, but I believe that the county may have acquired that property. I'm not
Oh, really?
entirely certain.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. Falk Park is in the vicinity. The house, if it is to remain residential, can be there until
Yeah.
a redevelopment proposal would be proposed. But there is existing floodplain or floodway, actually, you can see
Correct.
right here. So any kind of redevelopment would have to respect that and would have to go through the local review process.
Okay. I was just curious. It was part of my district for a long time, and I was just wondering what's happening with those folks. They've shown an interest to possibly group together and do something. So
Yeah, we have been contacted by at least one or two of these homeowners about joining their properties, and this would allow them to join the properties and look at some kind of future mixed-use development on that site.
it's a
Yeah.
complicated thing.
Good question on that view of the map, actually. So the homes across from IKEA are kind of lumped into that mixed use. Is there a reason the southwest corner of 13th and Drexel is not also grouped into the mixed use versus putting it a little small commercial square there?
I think that they're different, they have different kind of complications. Right along Drexel for these properties, it's already developed, and we have an idea of what can be developed. And on this site, I think it was always intended for there to be some kind of future commercial. In fact, I think it is actually for sale and being marketed as future commercial. It actually abuts up to commercial as it's going down 13th Street, further down, actually. So we do know that there might be some wetland and topography on this parcel, but I believe that we are looking for that to be small-scale commercial. But if you would rather it should be shown as mixed use, we can certainly
I didn't know
incorporate
if
that.
that limits it a lot more if you put it mixed use. Just for,
It is a smaller
sake of having
parcel.
it all
It
the
looks large, but it is, I don't recall the acreage off the top of my head, but it is kind of a smaller parcel to develop with mixed use.
Okay. Anyone else? Fred, anything? Don? Nope. Anything beyond the first? Dawn? Nope. Chris?
Elm Road area exit. St. John's there. And the exit, is that exit even showing up on here anymore? You got the new exit from, I noticed that in the packet you had mentioned the change. I was reading as I was getting ready for this, that you had made the change from last meeting to this meeting. So for the flex overlay for this area, for the corner down here. So I appreciate that. And I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything? So again, do we feel comfortable adopting this and moving it forward to council?
With the changes as proposed, were
Yes.
there any other changes that the Plan Commission would like to see?
Given my crystal ball, I think we're okay right now.
So if I understand correctly, the Plan Commission would like to see 13th Street on the east side between Rawson and the Go Right Way parcels as commercial, with manufacturing down to essentially the cemetery.
Are we better with a mixed use or a commercial? From a planning standpoint, what gives the city the greatest flexibility over a 20-year window?
On that corner, there's commercial already. Right across the street, there's commercial.
We're getting a statement here.
I think the mixed use designation is really encouraging residential to mix with commercial, and I don't think we want to encourage residential mixing with the industrial.
Okay.
So I would say if you're going to change it from industrial, commercial would probably be your best bet.
Thank you for the input. Okay.
Just another quick question. Can we review what we decided on with Planning Commissioner Hannah's concerns? Is anything changing? Does it stay the same? What's the end?
That's what we're talking about right now. So we're going to change from Rawson down to the Go Right Way parcels for this area, as discussed. Were there other areas that the Plan Commission wanted to change immediately? The implementation matrix comments and then the comments that I had mentioned as part of the updates are already being incorporated.
Midwest Drum, you got them as a mixed-use residential. If they ever decide to go in the 4th district, that would be North Putes, South Forest Hill, on 32. Like that big yellow section. Am I right? Oh, it would be the area just south of Kickers Park. Thought there was mention of that somewhere.
Testing my memory. here.
It's in the 4th district. Let's see if I can find it. Last point in District 4 of our handout.
Okay.
Just an explanation on it. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong.
I'm honestly not entirely familiar with that particular parcel.
Okay.
So the entire area that you're talking about here?
Yes. Well, I don't know if they own everything there. You know, you can see the drive. It's very much tucked in there along the tracks. I don't know if they own everything going to Pewds. I think there's some businesses along there. It looks like the fire chief's nodding yes. I think there's some existing businesses between Fifth Avenue and 32 on the north side.
Do you want to see that changed, or are you just
Well,
looking for
I'm just
clarification?
kind of, as I was reading the comment, as is in the case with the current plan proposed, and I mean, they don't intend on going anywhere in the near future, but in 20 years.
I think this comment is actually getting at the yellow area, though.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure because when I look at it, I didn't see any designation for change on the Mid-America site. I don't know how that property would be. That property in the yellow, there's everything from residential homes to all sorts of stuff down there.
I guess one last question I would have when you're done with that is just in general, do we have anything in the document about properties throughout the city that aren't kept up and might be like a junkyard, for lack of a better term, that we can go after them? And because I know that there's a handful of properties.
This
That-
is just
that wouldn't be-
identifying future land use.
Yeah,
really.
that wouldn't be part of the comprehensive
Got
plan. I think a general property maintenance is implied with the remaining portions of the comprehensive plan, getting at quality of life and things
Okay.
like that. Zoning itself, it would be different.
And there is a goal in the Housing and Neighborhoods Framework, the first one, the promote reinvestment. The objectives are to support property maintenance and strategic code enforcement. So it does give some recommendations on greater investment and really supporting those goals.
Well, I mean, I don't want to hold up the plan or anything. I just kind of wanted some clarification, and I thought maybe it would be, given a 20-year view, it would be multifamily residential, or that's what's planned in that area.
I also have another question once you're done.
So that's showing potentially multifamily. And we have seen multifamily that has been developed on capped sites.
Okay.
So,
I guess that would make sense. Definitely. Okay.
and obviously, if the land itself cannot support that type of use, it can't support that type of use.
Correct. Okay. I guess I just wanted the clarification. Christina?
Yes, so again, I'm going back to District 5. Bullet point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Properties on the south side of Oakwood Road, east of the railroad tracks, is proposed here to rezoned to industrial. I know that the other side of the railroad, we have plenty of industrial parks. I see where you're coming from. However, there is plenty of huge residential area east of Oakwood Road, east of the railroad. So I don't know if we want to bring the industrial park closer to residents in this area. The railroad act like a buffer.
I was
the one-
envisioning the railroad tracks near the FedEx facility.
So if I'm looking at the right area, and I think I am, we're talking about this area here? Are we talking about this area where my cursor is?
From what I understand, no. No, the one closer to Oakwood by the railroad, adjacent to this purple, I'm pointing to it. I don't know how to tell you that. Adjacent to the railroad by Oakwood Road, exactly. Yes.
By air gas?
That's existing manufacturing. It's recognizing that it's existing manufacturing.
Maybe I misunderstood. I just read properties on the south side of Oakwood, east of the railroad tracks. The hatched one, are we talking about?
I apologize. I don't have the original report in front of me, so let me just pull that up. Okay. So in the original report that we reviewed at the public hearing on December 10th, the area that we were talking about is identified as A on the map. So south of Oakwood is where that air gas facility is. So I believe that's the area that we were calling out as being part of the existing industrial that would still remain industrial.
I misunderstood. All right, thanks.
No, not a problem.
Ready for motion? Somebody want to take a stab at it?
So if I'm understanding correctly,
Oh,
with-
you go over it.
so the updates that are included within the report, so the correction to the utility property, the flex overlay to the commercial properties on 27th and Rawson, the park shown at the water tower on the park and open space map, the correction to the property at 275 East Drexel, the deletion of the bike share station at County Line Road, the comments made in the implementation matrix, and then the comments regarding the change for commercial between Rawson and the bus company properties. Those would all be incorporated into the comprehensive plan that you are adopting tonight if you chose to adopt tonight. Are there any other changes that the Plan Commission would like to incorporate?
Seeing none.
Could I make a motion stating what you just read, Carrie? And then that the Plan Commission adopts resolution 2019-04 approving the City of Oak Creek Comprehensive Plan and recommending adoption to the Common Council?
Incorporating comments received tonight.
Incorporating comments received tonight.
Second?
Roll call.
Hold on 20 seconds.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Roy.
Lorick, aye.
David Chai.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold aye.
Secret eye.
Chandler, I.
Thank you very much, Plan Commission, and congratulations.
That's so sarcastic.
But it's right. Then we don't have to worry about screwing up.
All right.
I did ask.
Let's move on to 6B, and it's a temporary use permit. We've seen this last time around for Boylan Properties, Oak Creek, for a temporary storage of inventory vehicles at the Ridge Community Church at 6912 South 27th Street. Lori?
Okay, so since the last time we met, we did receive some more information that was missing. In particular, we received all this on January 23rd. Boylan Properties proposes a temporary use permit for the storage of vehicles in the northeast parking lot of the Ridge Community Church property until March 31st of 2020. The location map is still staying the same, so the proposed storage area will still remain in that exact location. The location shall not impact church operations, and cars shall remain outside of the fire lane. There was some clarification about the time period which cars will be parked and delivered, which will be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. The proposal still remains the same, that they are proposing to put a privacy fence around the storage area. And then also, we did receive documentation regarding the agreement between the Ridge Community Church, and the Boylan Properties for the storage of vehicle, and this contract terminates on March 31st, 2020. We did suggest a motion, staff suggested motion, and also should the Plan Commission approve the temporary use permit request, conditions stating that no additional cars shall be added to the lot, and no further temporary use permit shall be issued after the expiration date has been added for the Plan Commission for consideration.
Okay. Questions regarding temporary use? Go ahead, Greg.
I'm just curious. I know they've been difficult to kind of get a hold of, and the cars are already there. It's in my district. I did get a call from somebody kind of complaining that they were there already. What's the recourse come March 31st if they don't remove the vehicles?
It has been up for discussion, but as of right now, they will, unfortunately, the Ridge will be the one receiving the citation, which is at $313 per day if it's still there.
Other questions? I do. Is the applicant the Ridge here or is Boylan here? One of the two. Come on up. So when can I expect this privacy fence? April 1st?
That was funny.
So, and name and address, please.
Tim Grayman, Honda dealership, 6141 27th Street.
So when's the fence going in? What's the plan? You got a contractor? You got somebody set to do it? When can we expect the
Yeah, my
fence?
contractor's right there, and we were waiting for the permits. We didn't want to put post up and didn't get it approved.
So what's our recourse? Can we put a time limit on when this fence goes? Because cars are already there. We had issues
Yes,
in the vacant lot.
Our understanding.
So we're good.
No, but the fence,
Code enforcement will follow through with it.
Okay, can we put a date on the fence?
Yes, we can in the conditions.
Yeah, I suggest we put a fence. What's your contractor's timeline to get the fence in?
I mean, if this gets approved, then I'm going to cut them loose. We already have a proposal. We got the cost, and we got the money to pay for it. So it was just a matter of that. We didn't want to not get the permit and then put a fence up and have to take it down.
I understand that, but I guess time of compliance, what's a reasonable time that your contractor needs to erect that fence? Can we expect it by February 6th? And I'll need you up on the microphone if you're going to shout out a date, please.
I would say we would need a week.
A week from today, so 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Come on up. I don't want to put your business in peril, but I do want a definite timeline on when you're going to do it. Name and address, please.
Jeremy Keller, Custom Facilities, 6296 Sweet C, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Next Friday would be February 7th.
Next Friday. I would at least put it in that the fences has to be erected by February 7th. If not, zoning will do what zoning does.
Can you actually get all the materials and everything you need by that date?
It's going to be tough, but
All right.
the alternative would be to move the cars out of there. That'd be even tougher. And the neighbors have already been looking at it for this whole time. It's been a very horrible partnership.
It got off rocky, that's for sure. Okay. Again, motion on B, but I would like that date on there.
Has to be completed by February 7th, 2020.
Correct?
Clark moves that the Plan Commission approve the temporary use permit for storage of inventory vehicles at 6912 South 27th Street with the following conditions. Number one, there shall be a maximum of 150 vehicles stored on the property in striped parking stalls within the approved vehicle storage area located in the northeast parking lot adjacent to the existing building. Number 2, removal of vehicles shall be between 8 o'clock a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m., Monday through Friday. Number 3, no additional cars shall be added to the site. Number 4, there shall be no sales of vehicles from the approved vehicle storage area. Number 5, there shall be no advertising or any other signage in the approved vehicle storage area. Number 6, the vehicle storage area shall not encroach upon the fire lanes. Number 7, there shall be no outdoor storage of equipment, junk, damaged, non-inventory vehicles, parts, supplies, or flammable or hazardous materials. Number 8, the temporary use permit for temporary storage of vehicles shall expire on March 31st, 2020. Inventory vehicles for sale shall be removed and the property shall be restored to its original condition within 14 calendar days following the expiration of the temporary use permit. No extensions of the temporary use permit will be issued. And number 9, fence must be completed by February 7th, 2020.
Seibert seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Donnie, aye. Seibert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. Good luck. 7A we've been through, brings us to 7B, conditional use permit for the Oak Creek Rawson Industrial LLC, conditional use permit for a freight yard, freight terminal, and shipment depot facility for the property at 610 West Rawson Avenue. Carrie.
Yes, so the proposal is for the allowance of freight yards, freight terminals, and transshipment depot facilities on the property in any portion of that existing multi-tenant building. The site and building plans for the particular building that we're talking about at 610 West Rawson Road, which are very small here, but you can see what the building looks like a little bit. Those plans were approved back in November of 2018. That specific use was for multi-tenant light industrial and warehouse distribution buildings, so it's already set up for that type of use. At that time, up to 4 tenants were thought to be accommodated by the building. It was later changed to up to 5. Right now, I think they are looking at possibly 2. That may change at a later date. This is a general request. It's not specific to any one tenant or operator, which means that any tenant within this building would be allowed to operate this type of use. The request is anticipating 24/7 operations with peak operations between 5 a.m. and midnight. They are expecting a maximum of 150 full-time employees at the site. That's in compliance with what they had anticipated for the site initially. The parking that is shown on the site plan that was approved back in November shows 66 truck and trailer parking stalls on the north side, along with 20 loading dock areas on the north elevation of the building. And then there are 120 parking stalls on the south, and that's for employees and customers if there are any customers anticipated. There are no exterior site or building modifications that would be part of this request. The only exception would be future anticipated wall signs. There would need to be a master sign plan approved by the Plan Commission should there be more than 2 tenants in the building, but we would deal with that at a later date. Outdoor storage is limited to parking of trucks and trailers on the north. There would be no other exterior outside storage. There was a mention of a trash facility, but that's not included in outdoor storage. The only trash receptacles would be located within the building or in the loading dock areas, as was shown on the November 2018 plan. So if the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal and believes that this is an appropriate use for this parcel, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves the conditional use permit for freight yard, freight terminal, transshipment depot facilities within the multi-tenant building on the property at 610 West Rawson Avenue after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Plan Commission's review at the next meeting, which is February 11th. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll open it up to the commission right off the get-go, and Chauncey looks ready to go.
I have a question for the applicant.
Hey, Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Plan Commission, Attorney Brian Randall of Davis and Keelthal, 111 East Kilbourne, Milwaukee, 53202, here on behalf of the applicant, owner, developer, HSA Commercial.
Can you provide us a little more information on the tenants that will be in this building?
Sure, and just for everyone's reminder, as Carrie pointed out, the building plans are rather small. If any of you have been by 6th and Rawson, the building is rather big. It is there, it's built, it has a shell occupancy certificate, meaning most of the work is done. All that we have to do is tenant finishes when those tenants are located. HSA in this type of building customarily does build on spec, so in this public-private partnership, the Plan Commission may remember this goes back a number of years. This was a site that was very environmentally contaminated. It required a fair amount of remediation. We obtained a grant from the state, WEDC grant. The city has tax increment finance money involved with this. And so the remediation went well, and part of the remediation plan was to cap the site with the building and the parking facilities. So that is all complete. The building is there. We have one tenant in the far west area of the building. I think they have about 68,000 square feet of the 180,000 square foot building. So it's actively been leased. That's the one sign that is up right now through the Berkey Group, and Jeff Hoffman is one of the best industrial brokers around. So we hope that they'll be able to land the tenants for the rest of the building. And the current operator that we do have is storing a fair amount of equipment in there. A lot of things like GE, MRI machines and other kind of baby incubators, some really highly valuable things that, of course, they have security, of course, now that I told you all that. But they are transporting that and storing that on behalf of their customers. Milwaukee Tool is another one of that company's customers. The company is called Safer Mile, and that's who we sign the lease with, although they have affiliations with typical freight haulers. And so as we worked with staff and what kind of trucks are coming and going and the volume of traffic, it does strike that overall the building was designed for, and the tenants that are attracted to it are truck freight terminal type of operations. So what we did, knowing that that was a conditional use, is apply for one that would cover the whole building, as Carrie explained, and to give the parameters of what we thought would be reasonable and proportional for this building. That's why we have 150 employees. That's why we have the number of truck daily trips that we identified. So that we're showing you this is what that building and the neighborhood can support. If we somehow find a tenant for 300 employees for the 100,000 square feet that remains in the building, we'll work with staff first. We'll figure out what we need, how that would affect our conditional use permit. But right now, we think with these overall parameters, this would be an approved CUP that will help us then market the building so that in this competitive market, we can say to a potential tenant, you simply have to do your build out, pull the right occupancy permit with the city, and if we have the right number of employees and truck trips, they would come in essentially as a permitted use. Otherwise, they'd go through the 3-month process, and we're afraid we might lose them to Franklin or to South Milwaukee or the city of Milwaukee. So that's why we as HSA are the applicant doing this, and we want it to blanket the whole building, but it'll be our responsibility to count the number of employees and the number of trucks as we start to put the final tenants into place.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we go any farther, would fire like to comment on this? One of our busiest fire stations, Station 3, sits directly across.
And now Chief Kresick, as he comes up, if you all notice, one of the changes on the site plan is on the far west. We actually do have a pervious paving fire lane that Chief Kresick was very involved with. How could we make sure there's full access around this building?
Because that is a one-way in out.
And so, yes, I'll turn the mic over to Chief.
Mike Kresick Fire Department, and I guess I get to speak this time more as a neighbor than maybe for the project. So referencing that, the 360 access on the building now, that is an advantage for us, and certainly that's I'm glad that came to fruition. That's very advantageous for us. We hope we never have to use it, but certainly having it available is a good thing. I guess I'm here less to speak about the acceptability of the project and what goes in the building, but more to offer the consideration of the infrastructure in that area. There is a fire station immediately across the street. There is a UPS, a Roldy, Right Way, another trucking company just to the north of their facility. There are no incidents that I would speak of as far as problems for us responding from that area. But as growth takes place, the consideration for 6th Street and the intersection of Rawson Avenue has to be considered. Potentially less due to sheer traffic, but the queuing of vehicles at 6th and Rawson. So the statement from the fire department would be more related to the consideration for the infrastructure and how it would handle that additional volume of traffic, semi or otherwise. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I
Comment?
have just a question, quick about the number of traffic inbound and outbound. Can you meet that 150 trucks per day, or will that change and varies at different times?
At this point, we are recognizing that that would be a standard that we're setting, and we've put it in our application. And so we expect to be under that. And that'll be part of our discussions with a potential tenant of really, what are we talking about? Is this, and many of the plan commissions know I worked on the FedEx freight terminal, and that is a very different freight yard, freight terminal. That was some 300 truck trips per day. And so if that type of user were to come to us, and I know we just had the big Amazon building, so Amazon's not going to come to us necessarily, but if that's the type of high volume traffic generator, we'd be in a position to say we can't accommodate you at this site based on the types of numbers that we put in this application, knowing who our neighbor is across the street with the fire department, and we'd maybe try and build them a different facility somewhere else. But we certainly will believe, we expect that we can live with those numbers, and if we need to work through staff and ultimately to amend within a reasonable amount, we would come back. But right now, with the tenant that we have, and I drove by tonight and I did see one truck pull in and one truck out, but then I sat there for 10 minutes and saw no others. And so that's what our current tenant is, and I know we have 100,000 square feet of the building left, but it's something that we'll just have to negotiate and make sure the right tenant comes in. Now, we may have a tenant that has very few truck trips, and maybe they're putting a data center in there, or they're doing something back of house with a call center. Something to that effect might be a totally different application process through the city. So we'll work with that as it comes, but by putting 150, we recognize that we're kind of putting that limit on ourselves.
Thank you.
I do actually have a comment. So while you're looking at the trucks and the numbers, make sure to add the timeline, because some delivery trucks come during non-rush hour, during rush hour. So that needs to be also coordinated with other neighborhood industrial trucks, because you're not the fire department, but you have a lot of industrial facility that have delivery. And are they coming via 94? Are they coming via county roads? What are they coming via? Because all those routes, you don't want to create like a bottleneck somewhere, and you have all those delays due to trucks. So that's some issues that needs to be looked at and analyzed before submitting that final approach. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Matt, anything from a traffic standpoint? Nothing? Dawn? Nope. Greg? Chris? Don?
Nope.
Brad, you've already gone. I think Attorney Randall laid it out pretty well. This was a brownfield redevelopment. The building is large. It was obviously made for storage. Part of the deal is you don't know what kind of tenants are going to be there. I think he made his point in that. If you go down the road, we had other industrial sites that are now used as entertainment down that strip in City 13 that, again, once again, at one point in time, it was an industrial use that's been repurposed. So it's hard to say what could wind up in there, but most likely they built it for truck traffic. My greatest concern really lied with our fire department there, and as long as they feel comfortable that when needed they can get out, and I think the purpose of those pavers and what have you was to give you an alternative to be able to scoot around out to the front maybe. So again, it's a busy road with UPS and all the trucking that goes on down there. We'll really have to see, but I think Chief Kresick brought up a really good point about the queuing, and that could be a traffic concern in the future. Obviously, we can't solve it now, but it could be a point of concern. So, other than that, just very quickly on this building, the porous pavers are a nice touch to this because this was environmentally challenged. You notice there ain't a lot of green on here. There were areas that needed to be capped, which accounted for the size of the building and the parking lot and things of that nature. So it was probably one of the most obvious blighted areas we had for quite a while, and to tell you the truth, it's quite an improvement. So it's a very short TIF for the city, and I think it's going to be well, and I'm glad to hear you already have a tenant. So other than that, I'm done talking. You guys can motion away.
Seifert moves that the Planning Commission recommends that the Common Council approve a conditional use permit for freight yard, freight terminal, transshipment depot facilities within a multi-tenant building on the properties at 610 West Rawson Avenue after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Planning Commission review at the next meeting, February 11th, 2020.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Lonnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 7C is a plan review of site, landscape, and related plans for the Wingspan development for a multifamily residential development at 7581 South 13th. Gary.
A planned unit development was approved for this site back in May of last year, if you will recall. Within the proposed site plan, there are 300 residential units, and here's the graphic showing the layout of the particular site. You'll notice that quite a large area is wetland, and that wetland area, with the exception of a few crossings, will remain undisturbed. This is another area, another graphic showing that overall site plan, so you can get an idea of the building layout along with the parking layout, and we'll get into the details of that in just a moment. So in this graphic, you can see that there are 6 three-story buildings, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the majority of the buildings. Those are 3-story with 40 units and 42 underground parking stalls. And then 3 additional building types, which are 2-story, more like townhouse style. They call them stacked flats. And those are going to have 20 units each with attached garages and room for parking in front of those garages. There also are a number of surface stalls throughout the property, clubhouse at the entrance here with an in-ground pool, and amenities within the clubhouse building itself, and its own dedicated parking. And this area down here, that's actually, I believe, a dog run. So the only access is actually off of 13th Street, and then this is all private within the development itself. Those access approvals will, if they have not already been provided to the city, copies will have to be provided to the city as well. The minimum number of required parking stalls per unit is calculated based on the number of bedrooms, and that would require 1.5 parking stalls for every studio, efficiency, and 1-bedroom unit, 2 parking stalls for every 2-bedroom unit, and 2.5 stalls for every 3-bedroom unit. With that and the mix that's proposed, a total of 537 parking stalls, which includes garage spaces, would be required, and the plans are showing over 560 total parking stalls. You'll see that there's also lots of landscaping proposed outside of the wetland areas. There is an area that is called to have prairie mix, and I believe that's for the detention pond. The use of prairie mix generally requires common council approval, so if that's necessary, they'll need to move forward with a request to the common council. The buildings themselves, the 3-story 40-unit buildings, will all look the same, so we're only showing the one graphic here. The exterior building materials that are proposed for all buildings, including the clubhouse, majority will be utility brick, but that utility brick does meet the minimum depth or thickness requirement per code. Manufactured stone, cement board siding in both lap and panel. Standing seam metal roofs for these particular buildings, which are the 3-story buildings, and then architectural asphalt shingles for the 2-story townhouse-style buildings. The windows that are proposed are also just going to be similar for all of the buildings, and those details are included in the Plan Commission packets. Now, per code, the use of fiber cement siding and panels requires a 3/4 majority approval. The Plan Commission has seen these types of materials proposed on many other buildings before. It also requires, code also requires a minimum of 65% of the total exterior wall area of a multifamily residential building to be comprised of brick or decorative masonry material. And we've incorporated calculations of each of the proposed materials on the elevations that were included in your packets for your review. It will be up to the Plan Commission to determine whether these proposed materials and percentages are acceptable. In the past, with similar types of proposals for fiber cement, those have been accepted to meet the overall 65% masonry requirement. Signs, though shown on some of the buildings, are not included as part of this review, and staff will work with the applicant to ensure that those signs meet code requirements or go through the appropriate processes. This is just showing a graphic of what the underground parking will be for the 3-story buildings. And this gives it, you can't really see it on the screen, so I refer you to your packets, but these are the layouts for each of the tenants' units in the 3-story buildings. This is the overall layout for right now of what the clubhouse will be. The interior may change slightly. Again, the exterior of the proposed clubhouse will incorporate the same materials as the residential buildings. There was a note in the staff report that mentioned that the clubhouse as proposed was taller than what was allowed by code. The staff and the applicant have had a conversation, and the applicant has stated that they will meet that 17-foot maximum height. These elevations are showing what the 2-story buildings would look like for the residential portion. Again, same building materials, a little bit different look because these are different types of units. These are the stacked flats, more the townhouse style with the attached garages. Layouts for those buildings are also included in your packets. Now, this is rather small, but what these are, there are 2 exterior trash enclosures proposed on the site. For the 6 3-story buildings, trash will be mostly in the garage. There are 2 areas where that differs, and one is actually at the north, by the northernmost building, which is actually a 2-story building, and then there's another one that's south that I believe feeds, that serves the other 3-story buildings. They are going to be constructed with smooth face CMU, split face CMU, and then fiber cement slat gates for the 2. We talked briefly about the landscape plans and the need to have Common Council approval for the use of prairie seed. We may need revisions to those landscape plans once the mechanical units that may be ground mounted have been identified or any transformers. So those would be minor modifications that would just show screening around them, and that if the Plan Commission is satisfied with staff reviewing those plans, then the landscape plans that are in the packets with those minor revisions would be what you would be approving. And just to give you an idea of what the renderings for the buildings are, these are the 3-story buildings. These are the exteriors that are proposed. Showing you a side-by-side of the 3-story and 2-story. And giving you an idea of both the clubhouse and the view from the road. There are some lighting fixtures and poles that have been proposed. These are similar to the street lights that you see along Drexel or particularly along IKEA Way. They're pretty close in what we're seeing being used through many developments, and staff has no concerns with the use of these. So if the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposed plans, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Jason Macklin, Wingspan Development Group LLC for the property at 7581 South 13th Street, subject to conditions 1 through 6. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Before we open it up, does the applicant, you want to make a statement on anything? If you'd like, give you the floor for a little bit.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Jason Macklin, 1001 Feehanville Drive in Mount Prospect, Illinois, 60056. And no real comments. I want to thank staff for their continued support and working with us. And we're excited about doing business in Oak Creek and excited about this project.
Great, thank you. Commissioners?
I have a
anything?
question for the
Fred?
applicant. What about visitor parking? I heard that you have so many stalls, but does that include for visitors?
It does. We're over on our parking count, and that does accommodate visitor parking.
Okay, because you don't want to put them on the road if you have to.
We definitely don't think it'll bleed onto any roadway. We have sufficient parking for the occupancy loads projected for each unit and visitors.
Thank you.
We have a few comments out of engineering. Sidewalk continuation along South 13th Street. The project that just completed, it ended probably midway through the property. We're going to need that completed all the way through. And that will tie into the sidewalk continuation on the development just south of you. They're continuing that from Drexel to their north property line.
Okay.
So we'll just have to work with you on that. Obviously, continue to work with our engineering department on their stormwater, which it seems like it's going pretty smoothly at this point. So continuing that and working with the alignments on the development to the south, make sure that we're aligning our connection access.
Yeah, and we've been in close contact with them, and those access points are aligned.
One other question, I guess. Have we had any conversations with the county in regards to what their requirements may be on 13th, if any?
We've had preliminary conversations with them. We haven't done a formal submittal because there's a pretty quick permit expiration, but we have had conversations with them, and there's no major hiccups that we expect.
Okay. Is that Mayor?
Actually, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Christina.
Just tapping to what's been said from engineering. How many access are you going to have here?
Well, we're going to have one major access point onto 13th Street, but we're also going to have secondary cross access with Highgate to the south.
Greg? Chris?
Well, while we're on this, view right here, Carrie, can you show us the rest of how it flows into, or is it not yet developed? I'm trying to understand the road and how it's going to continue on into the development to the south.
We don't actually have the two plans together, but that connection point will then be with the internal access roads for Highgate, which are next on the agenda for Plan Commission consideration. So what they really need to do is just meet up at that point.
Thank you.
Don?
No questions.
Fred? Chauncey?
One quick question for this development. Is it for townhomes, homes, condos, apartments? What are these items identified as?
They're market rate apartments.
Oh, apartment. Thank you.
Just a couple things. Matt, you kind of touched on it. Is a retention pond needed for this development? Or is the wetland sufficient to absorb whatever needs to be done?
They have 2 retention ponds on site that they're working through.
The one to the south?
There's one to the south and there's one up in the northern portion of the development.
Oh, there is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
I
so
knew the
there's a
one in
large
the
one
south,
here.
but,
Yep.
okay, so that's pre-engineered. And then I guess The only other question, obviously, you're going to have the main access point on 13th. That's two ways. They can go north or south out of there. They won't be relegated one way in, one way out.
Correct.
And then fire, and I'm sure you guys have worked with them about turning radiuses within the lots. Some of it looks a little tight maybe for your apparatus.
Mike Kresick, Fire Department. As we get to, the formal site plan submittal to the city, we'll start to look at some of those turning angles inside. I think this plan is a little bit deceiving on how that would lay out. I think the key consideration for us is apparatus turnaround points, and that's something you can factor in with some, just expanding the asphalt or concrete in a particular area. I just do want to comment on the site access, the singular point off 13th Street. This was identified early on. It was discussed early on. There were some discussions with the developer on what we could do to that singular access point, and we did reach some agreements on how to make that work. We also acknowledge that southern access point is very important to us, and we feel comfortable with the way the project's progressing, that will come into play rather quickly and provide us secondary access.
Right. No, beyond that, I think it's a nice looking development. I like the renderings. I like what I'm seeing, so I don't have a lot of stuff going on. We've been through the fiber cement board. We've done this on multiple things. Will there be a main, at the clubhouse, any significant monument, marking the front end of your development? We see that quite a bit on developments like this.
Yeah, we're gonna come back with a separate signage submittal, but I think we'd anticipate a monument sign and then some signage on the clubhouse exterior.
All right, I have nothing else.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. I don't know. You want to ask them?
Excuse me, Jason, when you guys looking to try to break ground?
We're hoping to have our site permit and break ground by April 1st.
Great.
Excellent. Okay. Motion, please.
Donnie moves that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Jason Macklin, Wingspan Development Group LLC for the property at 7581 South 13th Street with the following conditions. That all relevant code requirements and conditions of the existing planned unit development remain in effect. That copies of all access approvals shall be provided to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications. That the exterior brick and stone veneer meet the minimum 4-inch thick requirement per code. That the plans are revised to include locations for all mechanicals, transformers, and utilities. All mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground building, and rooftops shall be screened from view. That all stormwater, water, and sanitary sewer requirements are coordinated with and approved by the engineering department and Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility prior to the submission of building permit applications. That all revised plans, site building, landscaping, etc. are submitted in digital format for review by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications.
A quick question before we second it. Do we have to include that sidewalk that you want to add? Should that be in here somewhere, or are we good?
We'll be handling that through our development agreement.
Thank you.
Seifert seconds.
Are you done with the motion, Don?
Yes, so
Okay.
moved.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye. Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. Thank you. Good luck, guys. Gets us to 7D. Plan review of landscape and lighting plans for the Highgate development for mixed-use plan development at 7869 South 13th Street. Gary.
So this is part of that overall planned unit development to the south that we just referenced. This is for the internal access points for their landscaping and for their lighting, so all of their PUD common areas. And if we go to the plans themselves, you'll get an idea of just what the overall streetscape is anticipated to be. So you can see where the internal layout is. That connection point on the north is where it will meet up with the Hub 13 apartment complex that we just described. Now, individual sites will still be required to put landscaping on their properties, but this is really for the roadways and for the common areas that we're talking about for landscaping. They did provide plans as well as guidelines. The guidelines include treatments for streetscapes, perimeter landscape, and buffer yards. They're meant to supplement and complement the proposed plans themselves, which this is the overall landscape plan, and we have more zoomed in areas that are included in your packets for your review. Staff had no real comments for the landscaping as proposed. We want to thank the applicant and their consultants for working through these issues with us and for providing those guidelines for the development and for future tenants. The lighting as well will be along those internal access points, kind of showing them on the same plans as the landscape, so you can get an idea of how the plants and the poles will interact with each other. There is one recommendation, and that's something that staff is recommending to the applicant, to incorporate a pole and fixture that more closely resembles the developments in the area, such as along IKEA Way, and particularly to the north for the Highgate or for the Hub 13 development that we just reviewed. Something that is similar, that is complementary, kind of gives more of a cohesive and holistic development feel by using a similar pole and fixture. So we'll work with the applicant in order to make that change, but that's something that we would like to request, and we can certainly work with any of the future development of the properties to ensure that we are incorporating that type of similar pole and fixture treatment on the development properties themselves. So if the Plan Commission is satisfied with these landscaping and lighting plans for the common development areas, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the plans submitted by John Thompson of Highgate LLC for the property at 7869 South 13th Street, subject to conditions 1 through 4. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll open it up. Questions, comments? Regarding the lights, Carrie, then all the lights within the streets in this development will be owned by the developer.
That is correct.
Okay.
For the common areas, for the internal access roads, they will be private.
Correct. Okay. I don't have anything. Nothing. Matt, anything from perspective of engineering? Okay. Dawn? Greg? Anybody? Fred? Don?
Nope. Looks good.
All right. Motion then.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission approve the landscape and lighting plans submitted by John Thompson Highgate LLC for the property at 7869 South 13th Street with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Number 2, that all landscaping be maintained in accordance with the approved landscape design guidelines, the planned unit development requirements, and the approved landscape plan. Number 3, that the lighting plan is updated to incorporate a light pole and fixture that is complementary to the multifamily residential development to the north and the mixed-use development along IKEA Way to the west. And number 4, that all detailed revised plans incorporating the requirements above are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Kuzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Aldani, aye. Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right. Before we just break away, I just want to thank staff, the IT guy, Tim. He always does a great job. Lori, Carrie, great job. Thanks, commissioners. Appreciate it. Adjournment, please.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 7:41.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Aldani, aye. Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank you very much.